you'll see more and more, smarter money moving into the metals. See, what most people don't stop to consider is that the precious metals in physical form are the only thing outside the system entirely. I mean, entirely out of the system. If you have gold and silver coins that you can touch, and let's say there's a bank run, or the electronic system fails or is turned off, or the banks decide just to stop trading for a day or two, like during the 9/11 crisis. I mean, all these things are possibilities. I'm not predicting that. What I'm saying is a fact. And the fact is that the only monetary asset that's outside of the financial realm that's coveted worldwide and has been mandated by the populace for thousands of years as the best money available, you can own it and be totally safe outside of no matter what event happens. So this is something that most people never consider. I mean, we're made fun of as gold bugs or a barbarous relic, or, it's only something in a French romance novel. Someone has gold coins, which is utter nonsense, because central banks have been net buyers of gold for a very long time. And I think the smartest money on the planet that has too much U.S. debt, China, India, and Russia, are all buying gold in massive quantities. And, as much as they try to hide it, it's pretty apparent what they're doing. And the reason is that it's kind of it's a hedge, really, against their U.S. dollar holdings. So certainly, we can be made fun of or whatever, but, regardless of the emotion involved, regardless of what, the modern age thinking is, the barbarous relic gold has been the money for thousands of years, will continue to be so, and it's the most safe, it's the safest monetary asset you can own. I mean, if you had $1 million in 1913 when the Fed was founded, a $20 gold piece, now gold is, $1,200. So you'd have 60 times on your money. So that million would be worth 60 million in fiat today. But that million in paper would still be worth $1 million. So would you rather have 60 million in an asset that doesn't deteriorate, fire doesn't hurt it? It's been recognized worldwide, no matter what country you go to. You don't have to go to the currency window and exchange it. You can do direct commerce with it in almost any way, shape, or form. Or do you want to hold on to this piece of paper that, throughout time has always lost value? I mean, it's a pretty clear signal, but you don't hear people talk like that. They'll tell you how great the stock market is, and if you get in the stock market and just buy and hold. Well, the Dow Jones all the time. I mean, it's not like every week, but a lot of the companies that were, one of the 30 best companies in America no longer exist. So they had to replace it with stronger companies. So it's kind of I won't say scam, but it's a bit of a situation where they get to cherry pick the best companies at the time and throw them into the Dow 30 to make it look good. But it's changing rules of the game. I mean, gold is not a changeable element on the periodic chart. I mean, it is what it is, and it stays where it is, and it does what it does. It doesn't have to be, massaged or changed or given the benefit of the doubt or replaced or anything like that. So there's a lot of basic common sense things that most people are just totally unaware of. And yet, we get labeled as, conspiracy theorists or gold bugs, silver bugs, and the facts are so plainly evident that it really upsets me sometimes. And excuse me for ranting on your show, Elijah, but I'm old enough and I'm getting a little tired of the nonsense that's out there that it passes for an academic accolade that somebody with a high intellect is passing off to the public when it's pure BS.
No problem. I mean, those are some very interesting points. Getting back to kind of what the Fed might do about raising interest rates, I know you talked about in an interview that even if the rates are raised, gold will still continue to rise until the interest rates are higher than the rate of real inflation, which is calculated by Shadow Stats at around 8 or 9%, you said. So did you want to talk a little bit about that? I mean, that there shouldn't be this fear that, if the Federal Reserve raises interest rates, then maybe gold will crash?
Right. No, I think that's great. And I think it isn't asked often enough. Most people have a belief that's inaccurate, and that is once interest rates start to rise, it's going to crush the gold market. And that's not true. I mean, could it? Yeah. And when the day comes and interest rates are raised, gold sells off, you'll probably hear the mainstream press talk about that. They'll say, oh, interest rates are up. It's over for the gold market. We're interviewing David Morgan. Oh, no, we won't have him on anymore. But, they'll interview some people and they'll all claim that the increase of interest rates is killing the gold market. It's not true. It might have an effect short term. But no, you cannot get gold down out of the box. Read Gibson's Paradox. I mean, it's a tough read, but, I'll give Larry Summers some credit for writing it and telling the truth about interest rates and gold. So you have to have a real rate of return. So if the inflation rate is 9% and you're getting 7%, you're still losing 2% year over year real purchasing power. And until the real interest rate is at or above the true inflation rate and you have a real rate of return, once that happens, at that point, you're probably going to see the gold market quiet down, sell off, and start to subside. But you could have rising interest rates for quite some time. And the other point I made in that other interview is you're never going to see, in my view, and I hate to use the word never because, you're very suspect. I mean, you can always use one example and all of a sudden you're wrong. But it's very, very unlikely that you would ever see interest rates that high. The market is so fragile based on all the interest rates derivatives, the credit default swaps, the interest rate derivatives that just go on beyond belief with these quants that have written these programs without any appreciation for the amount of risk involved. So the counterparty risk throughout the system is systemic. If one bank goes down, they all go down. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but the idea is correct. So I don't see those interest rates ever getting to even 5%. Could be wrong. But to get above the true inflation rate, the real inflation rate, that would take care of the gold market. But I don't see them getting that far. I think the system would crash well before you got to those higher interest rates.
Well, David Morgan, thank you so much for joining us today on financeandliberty.com. I guess before we let you go, are there any last thoughts you'd like to add?
Yes, I would. I think that, part of the problem with our sector, and I'm critiquing myself as well as others that you interview, and it's just in a general way, is that really the idea that, the market's ready to crash any minute. I mean, a lot of other shows, not yours necessarily, Elijah, like it's any minute. I mean, this thing can grind on for a very long time. All that is involved is set in motion, and it's really hard to turn the Titanic on a dime. I mean, it's a slow process to turn things around, and that you should take a perspective that is very much based on your own belief system and your own knowledge base and your own education. So let's say you're educated about the problems in the financial system. And then you take, let's say, a 10% position in gold or silver or a mix thereof. And then you don't know when in the future this is going to, mount to some very, very big problem. Go about your life. In other words, I think nature preaches balance. And I think gold and silver are part of a balanced portfolio, part of a balanced attitude. But some in our genre seem to get a little bit obsessed about a certain specific metal or metals or they overload, in other words. They're not balanced, in other words. And, certainly I am overloading the silver market. I mean, my whole life is basically tied to what the price of silver does. But that's a choice of mine. I'm very conscious of it. And I have investments outside the silver market, certainly. So the idea being that be true to yourself, understand the problems, take the necessary precautions, and then enjoy things as much as you possibly can, or at least seek to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. The biggest, I guess, beef that I have is that it's almost entertainment for some people to tune in and listen to all the problem side of the equation rather than identify the problem, get a solution, own real metal, and move on and ask yourself, what can I do to be part of the solution? So thank you for giving me that extra time. I think it's important to, not focus too much time on the problem, focus more time on, getting the problem solved for your own personal family, and then moving on and asking, what can I do? What can we do? What can my company do? What can our family do? What can our corporation do? What can our group do? that adds something to life's energy, that adds something to our fellow man, that brings this world into a better, more harmonious, happier, more truthful, more honest, more, let's say, livable place. Because we all have that power. We just, if you choose to just dwell on the negative, it's not going to serve anybody. It certainly doesn't serve yourself.
Well, very good words of wisdom, David Morgan. Before we let you go, where can our viewers find you for more?
The best is just go to the website, themorganreport.com, get our free e-letter that comes out every Saturday. If you really want to follow all the interviews I do, get on the YouTube channel, which is Silver Guru. If you're interested, you're kind of an academic or an avid reader, such as myself, go to the Twitter feed at Silver Guru 22. All the articles that I read don't go up there, but probably the top 2 or 3 I read every day, I do throw them up there so you can kind of see what I'm seeing and what I think is important. And outside of that, if you're very, very interested in being a serious metals investor and you're looking at money, mining, and metals, go to the Morgan Report and look at the subscribe feature.
Definitely. Once again, thank you so much for joining us, David Morgan.
My pleasure, Elijah. Thank you.
This video was brought to you by ReluctantPreppers.com. Click here to watch Reluctant Preppers' interview with David Morgan. Now for a clip from the interview.
It isn't that I'm such a silver bug. I'm a silver bug because that's what history teaches. It's not that I decided, silver's the greatest thing out there. No, people have voted through thousands of years on what the best money is. The argument that money can be anything is true. But if you look at what the vote has been, the vote is overwhelmingly silver and gold. That's the vote. That's the real democracy, if you will. That's the lesson to be learned here. The vote through history is that those two metals, beyond anything else, have served their purpose as money more than anything you can name by far. And if you look even deeper, silver has done so far more than gold.